Hey there, pirates! Welcome aboard the Anime No Me channel. Luffy, already recognized as one of the new Yonko, now faces the most dangerous shadow looming over the world. Marshal D. Teach, Blackbeard. Since the Marineford War, Teach has been growing into the greatest threat to anyone who dreams of freedom, and his path stands in stark contrast to Luffy's. While Luffy earns allies through trust and friendship, Blackbeard gains power through fear and manipulation. It's no coincidence that Oda has made it clear in multiple interviews and hints that Blackbeard will likely be Luffy's ultimate rival before the final showdown against the world government. But what would happen if, in this scenario, Luffy realized he couldn't defeat Blackbeard with the Straw Hats alone? What if he decided to temporarily gather powerful allies who had a history of rivalry or even hatred toward him? This is where Katakuri and Trafalgar Law come in. First, let's recall how Luffy's relationship with Katakuri was built. In the Whole Cake Island arc, chapter by chapter, we saw that Katakuri is more than just a villain. He is a mirror of Luffy, a warrior fighting for his family, carrying a sense of honor uncommon in such a chaotic crew as Big Moms. When they faced each other, it wasn't just a battle of punches and hockey, it was a clash of wills. Katakuri, until then seen as Big Mom's invincible son, began to respect Luffy precisely because he never gave up, never lied about his goals, and fought with a pure heart. By the end of that fight, Katakuri fell, but not humiliated. On the contrary, he acknowledged that Luffy was worthy, even asking before collapsing whether Luffy would really return to defeat Big Mom someday. Luffy's determined answer sealed a silent bond between them. Katakuri isn't a traditional enemy, he is someone who could, in the future, become an unlikely ally. Now, let's think about Law. Since Punk Hazard, Law and Luffy formed an alliance that changed the course of history. Together, they toppled Doflamingo, triggered Kaido's downfall, and shifted the balance of power in the New World. But this alliance wasn't just strategic, it became personal. Law, a wary man scarred by the loss of Corazon and fueled by hatred for Doflamingo, found in Luffy someone who could break through his walls of distrust. Luffy, never asking for anything in return, gave Law the chance for revenge while showing that his vision of freedom and friendship could extend even to someone so closed off. When Law, in Wano, shared the spotlight of victory against Kaido with Luffy and Kid, it was clear that the alliance had gone beyond any initial agreement. Law respects Luffy, even if he would never admit it aloud like other allies might. With these two characters established, the idea begins to take shape. Facing the threat of Blackbeard, Luffy could invite Katakuri and Law to join the Straw Hats for a specific mission. It wouldn't be a permanent fusion, but a temporary alliance with an epic feel. And why would Luffy do this? Simple, because Blackbeard is no ordinary enemy. Teach has already defeated Ace, outwitted the Marines, stolen Whitebeard's powers, and is now a Yonko commanding a crew full of dangerous monsters like Shiryu, Katarina Devon, Vasco Shot, and more. On top of that, Blackbeard doesn't fight fair. He is cunning, cruel, and pragmatic. Luffy knows that even with the Straw Hats' full power, taking on Teach and his crew could mean a devastating defeat. This is where Katakuri and Law come to mind. Inviting Katakuri makes sense. Luffy respects him as a warrior, and Katakuri respects Luffy as a man. Even bound by his family and the fate of being Big Mom's son, Katakuri has shown that his sense of honor speaks louder than loyalty to his lineage. With Big Mom defeated in Wano and Pudding kidnapped by Blackbeard, his family has fallen into crisis. It's entirely plausible that Katakuri, seeing his mother defeated and his siblings' safety threatened, would seek a new path, a new balance. By Luffy's side, he could not only fight Blackbeard, but also ensure that his brothers and sisters don't fall under the control of an even crueler tyrant. After all, Blackbeard has already shown he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate or enslave anyone who poses a threat. For Katakuri, joining forces with Luffy would at the very least be a chance to protect what remains of his family. Inviting Law, on the other hand, would be almost natural. Law and Luffy already have a strong history of cooperation, but Law also has personal scores to settle with Teach. During the post-Wano arc, we saw Blackbeard attacking Law's crew, leaving the Heart Pirates' fate uncertain. This open wound is more than enough for Law to consider a closer alliance with Luffy. But unlike before, when Law still had reservations, he now knows that fighting someone like Teach alone is impossible. The pain of losing his crew, the memory of Corazon, and the anger at the New World cycle of violence would push Law to accept Luffy's hand, even if reluctantly. He wouldn't say yes with a smile, but his silent determination would speak for itself. And then comes the epic scene. Luffy, in his straightforward and simple way, would probably say something like, "Katakuri, Law, let's take down that idiot together." No speeches, no fluff, just the trust that they'd understand. Katakuri would remain silent, maybe recalling their past fight, and give a subtle, almost imperceptible smile of acceptance. Law, meanwhile, would sigh, grumble about how Luffy always gets into trouble, but deep down, he'd already be committed to joining them. This unlikely trio would form the foundation of an offensive against Teach an offensive, uniting three different kinds of strength: Luffy's impulsive freedom, Law's calculated coolness, promise and Katakuri's unshakable honor. From a narrative perspective, this would have a huge impact. It would be the first time we see an arc where enemies and allies from past arcs unite against a common foe. It would echo Marineford, but in a more personal way, because it wouldn't just be a war of famous names, it would be a battle fueled by intimate backstories. Law would be avenging his crew, Katakuri would be protecting his family, and Luffy would be defending the future of the Straw Hat Pirates and his dream of becoming king of the pirates. Against Blackbeard, who embodies selfish ambition and betrayal, this trio would symbolize how even rivals can unite when freedom is at stake. And here's the most exciting detail of this theory: the world's reaction. Imagine Morgan's newspapers screaming, "Luffy, Katakuri, and Law form alliance to face Blackbeard." Chaos would erupt instantly. The already weakened Marines would panic as three formidable forces now united against one of the most dangerous Yonko. The world government would be torn between letting them clash or stepping in, and the other pirates of the New World would watch with wide eyes, realizing that the end of an era is drawing closer and closer. The battle against Blackbeard wouldn't just be another conflict in the New World. It would be the ultimate clash between two philosophies. On one side, Luffy, Katakuri, and Law, representing three different paths that converge around the need to protect what they value most. On the other, Blackbeard and his crew, the embodiment of boundless ambition, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of ultimate power. The ideal setting for this showdown could be a remote island, one of those carrying secrets tied to the Void Century, maybe even the final key to reaching Laugh Tale. And that's where the clash would happen. The first scene of this encounter would already carry enormous weight. Luffy, Katakuri, and Law would step ashore side by side, while Blackbeard appears with his crew, laughing and mocking the unlikely alliance. Teach is a master at provocation, and he would undoubtedly ridicule Katakuri for joining Luffy, bringing up Big Mom's defeat in Wano, and taunt Law about the destruction of the Heart Pirates. But unlike other enemies, he wouldn't shake the resolve of this trio. Katakuri would respond with silence, his intimidating presence speaking for itself. Law, in turn, would reply with a cold, piercing gaze, making it clear that this was personal. And Luffy, in his straightforward way, would simply say, "I'm gonna beat you, Teach." The fight would quickly split into duels. Katakuri would face Shiryu head-on. Shiryu, with the Suke no Mi and his natural cruelty, is the perfect opponent for Katakuri, who can see the future. Their battle would be a spectacle of foresight versus invisibility. Katakuri, with his advanced observation haki, would anticipate Shiryu's movements, but struggle to counter someone who disappears mid-attack. Yet Katakuri isn't just foresight, he's adaptation. His fight with Luffy showed that he learns in the midst of battle. It would be incredible to see him pick up on patterns in Shiryu's invisible movements, finally landing a decisive strike with his haki-infused mochi, a fight worthy of two monsters. Meanwhile, Law would face off against Katarina Devon. Devon, with the Inu no Mi, model Kyuubi no Kitsune, can take the form of other people, deceiving and creating confusion. Law, used to handling tricks and manipulation, would use his room and surgical abilities to dismantle her illusions. The battle would carry a strategic weight because Devon could transform into Law's allies, or even Luffy to throw him off. But the Surgeon of Death wouldn't fall for these traps easily. He'd cut through the illusions, literally cornering Devon with his intelligence and cold precision. This fight would highlight the contrast between deceptive manipulation and Law's surgical precision. And then we reach the main event, Luffy versus Teach. This battle would be one of the most intense in the entire story, because Teach isn't just brute strength, he wields the Yami no Mi, which can nullify other devil fruit powers, and the Gura no Mi, capable of causing earthquakes that can devastate entire islands. Against him, Luffy would have to unleash the full power of his Hito no Mi model Nika, combining his absurd creativity with advanced Conqueror's haki. Their clash would be almost mythological. Darkness that devours everything versus the light that liberates. Teach would try to pull Luffy in and neutralize him, but Luffy, with his unpredictable style, would turn the battlefield into something both comical and terrifying at the same time, just like we saw in his fight against Kaido. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.